No, I think the kartals are quite good. It's just the string is pretty. When you're stringing kartals, you want a thick.
Yeah, that was the too stringy.
I mean, it's kind of okay, but if you play these for a long period of time, they chop your fingers off. Sorry. I think we should be making these garlands a bit bigger. Or was it? That's a big one there. Okay. What verse are we doing? 31. Okay. Jayarad. Let's get this going properly, shall we? A little bit up. That's good. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Bharadhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Bharadhari Vallabha Giri Bharadhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamunati Ravanachari Jamunati Ravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Bharadhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Bharadhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Bharadhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamunati Ravanachari Ravana Jamunati Ravanachari Hari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jayam Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivajikacharya Asto Tarasati Śrīmad, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada ki, Ananta Koti Vaishnava ki, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki, Prem Se Gaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Se Advaita Gadadhara Siva Sadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shyama Kunda Radha Kundagiri Govardhana ki, Sri Vrindavan Dham ki, Sri Mayapur Navadvip Dham ki, Sri Purushottam Chatra ki, Sri Gangabai ki jai, Sri Jamuna Mai ki jai, Bhakti Devi ki jai, Tulsi Devi Maharani ki jai, Harinam Sankirtana ki jai, Nitai Gaura Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We're reading from Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, Canto 6, Prescribed Duties for Mankind, Chapter 9, The Appearance of the Demon Vritrasura, Text 31. Sri Deva Uchahu. Namaste Yajnaviryaya Vayase Uttate Tamaha. Namaste Yasta Chakraya Namasu Puruhutaye Sri Deva Uchahu. Namaste Yajnaviryaya Vayase Uttate Namaha. Namaste Yasta Chakraya Namasu Puruhutaye Sri Deva Uchahu. Namaste Yajnaviryaya Vayase Uttate Namaha. Namaste Yasta Chakraya Namasu Puruhutaye Sri Deva Uchahu. Namaste Yajnaviryaya Vayase Uttate Namaha. Namaste Yasta Chakraya Namasu Puruhutaye Sri Deva Uchahu. Namaste Yajnaviryaya Vayase te uttama. Namaste yasta chakraya. Namasu puruhutaye. Sri Deva Uchaho. Namaste Jagyaviryaya. Vayase Uttate Namaha. Namaste Hyasta Chakraya. Namasu Puruhutaye. Ladies. Sri Deva Uchaho. Namaste Jagyaviryaya. Vayase Uttate Namaha. Namaste Yascha Chakraya. Namasu Puruhutaye. Sri Deva Uchaho. Namaste Jagyaviryaya. Vayase Uttate Namaha. Namaste Yasta Chakraya. Namasu Puruhutaye. Sri Deva Uchaho. Namaste Jagyaviryaya. Vayase Uttate Namaha. Namaste Hyasta Chakraya. Namasu Puruhutaye. Sri Deva Uchaho. The demigods said, Namaha, obeisances, te, unto you, Yagyaviryaya, unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is able to give the results of sacrifice. Vayase, who is the time factor which ends the results of Jagya, Utta, although, te, unto you, Namaha, obeisances, Namaha, obeisances, te, unto you, he, indeed, Astachakraya, who throws the disc, Namaha, respectful obeisances, Supuruhutaye, having varieties of transcendental names. The demigods said, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, you are competent to give the results of sacrifice, and you are also the time factor that destroys all such results in due course. You are the one who releases the chakra to kill the demons. O Lord, who possesses many varieties of names, we offer our respectful obeisances unto you. Text 32. Yat te gatinam tishrinam ishitu paramam padam navachino visagasya dattar veditumarhati. O Supreme Controller, you control the three destinations: promotion to the heavenly planets, birth as a human being, and condemnation in hell. Yet, your supreme abode is Vaikuntha Dham. Since we appeared after you created this cosmic manifestation, your activities are impossible for us to understand. We therefore have nothing to offer you but our humble obeisances. Purport: an inexperienced man generally does not know what to beg from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Everyone is under the jurisdiction of the created material world, and no one knows what benedictions to ask when praying to the Supreme Lord. People generally pray to be promoted to the heavenly planets because they have no information of Vaikuntha Loka. Śrīmad Bhāgavatam quotes the following verse: Deva lokat pitri lokat nirayats chapiyat param tishribhya paramam stanam vaishnavam vidusham gatahi. There are different planetary systems known as Devaloka, the planets of the demigods, Pitruloka, the planets of the Pitas, and Niraya, the hellish planets. When one transcends these various planetary systems and enters Vaikuntha Loka, he achieves the ultimate resort of all the Vaishnavas. Vaishnavas have nothing to do with the other planetary systems. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshurun Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manovishtam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kada Mahiyam Tadati Svapadantikam Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langhayate Garim Yat Kripa Tamaham Bande Sri Gurum Dinatarinam. So here we have prayers offered to the Lord by the demigods. Sri Deva Uchahu. And so they're offering their respects to the Lord, describing his transcendental qualities. The first quality they describe is you give the results of sacrifice. Namaste Yagya Viryaya Vayase Uttate Namaha. So, Krishna mentions in the Bhagavad Gita, Bhaktaram Jagya Tapasam Sarvaloka Maheshwaram Suridam Savabhutanam Gyatva Mam Shantim Richati. Prabhupada says the peace formula. Right? What's the peace formula? To acknowledge, recognize that Krishna is the enjoyer of all of the sacrifices, of all of the activities, of all of the living entities. And so that's recognized here by the demigods. Namaste Yagyaviryaya Vayase Uttate Namaha. So they're acknowledging the Lord as the bestower of the results of sacrifice. Well, he gives everything, but he also takes everything away. So we get We're given facility, right? We're given opportunity. But we are wearing borrowed plumes. Right? Doesn't belong to us, actually. Therefore, there's obeisances to the Lord when He gives, right, which everybody likes. And there's also obeisances to the Lord when He takes it away, right? Because ultimately, the Lord is the Upadrashta and the Anumanta, the overseer and the permitter of everything that goes on within the creation. And there's this constant state of flux. And we're seeing that with the demigods. The demigods were on the top of the world. Well, on top of the universe. Right? But then eventually it was taken away from them. Now they're trying to get it back. Right? So they're acknowledging this is all taking place under the auspices of the Supreme Controller, who can provide the results of the yajna but also take away. When Srila Prabhupada had his Bhagavad Gita manuscript stolen in New York in 1965, that was his response. Krishna gives and He also takes away. So imagine how much work Srila Prabhupada must have put into translating that Bhagavad Gita. Not a small book. And yet, when the manuscript was stolen, after all that work, Prabhupada acknowledged that Krishna's in control. And then he went and wrote the Bhagavad Gita again. I guess it would have been easier the second time around, because he'd already done it the first. Right? So that's the first. Yajna viryaya. But then vayase yajna, vayase utta, vayase utta te namaha, but also the one who takes it away. Namaste hiyasta chakraya. He is the deliverer, he's the owner of the chakra. You can see up here we've got a chakra. 4 weapons. Lord Vishnu has 4 weapons. Or 4 ornaments, I guess you could say, because 2 of them are not weapons, actually. But the chakra and the club are specifically reserved for the demons. Banging heads and chopping off arms and legs and heads and so forth. Right? Whereas the conch and the lotus are for giving benedictions to the devotees. Even Krishna's clubbing is a benediction. Just as his giving is a benediction and his taking away is also seen as a benediction by the devotees. Right? I'm not in control. I'm not in charge. The mood of the devotee is Krishna's in charge. The mood of the demons is, Ishvaraham Maham Bhogi. I'm the controller and the enjoyer. But the devotee looks at it from a different perspective. Bhaktaram Yagya Tapasam Sarvaloka Maheshwaram. Krishna's the enjoyer. Krishna's the proprietor. He's the Ishvara. We've been doing a lot of yajnas lately. So, idam Krishnaya, idam na mama. This is for Krishna, it's not for me. So it's a very different mentality. Almost, it's a It's a complete 180-degree turnaround, the vision of the devotees. And that's been demonstrated here by the demigods. Namaste Hyashta Chakraya. You're the ultimate destroyer of everyone and everything. But in particular here, the Asta Chakraya means who throws the disc. Namaha Supuru Hutaye, having varieties of transcendental names. Supuru. So, in the second verse, text 32, Yat te gatinam tishrinam. You control the three destinations. And it's interesting here, 3 destinations. What are the 3 destinations? Who can remember?
Heavenly planet.
Yeah. Heavenly planets, hellish planets, and earthly, yes, the human, earthly planets here. Heavenly planets, birth as a human being, and condemnation in hell, which means very often animal life, right? Yet, you don't exist in any of those places, right? You create these 3 destinations, but you live in another place, right? A different destination, Vaikuntha Loka, right? We appeared after you created the cosmic manifestation. So the demigods are admitting we really can't understand your transcendental qualities, your transcendental personality. Navarjino visagyasya. Thank you. So this is interesting. There are 3 locations. Now Prabhupada says, usually a person offering prayers to the Lord doesn't know what to ask for. Because usually they're aspiring to improve their material condition, and that's done by seeking elevation to the heavenly planets. Like Krishna mentions in the Bhagavad Gita that the unintelligent are bewildered by the flowery words of the Vedas, wherein one's encouraged to worship the demigods for elevated material life. And so this is whilst it's a benefit, right? It's a benefit. Still, it's temporary. So you perform sacrifices and yajnas, and you're elevated to the heavenly planets, but then what happens? Taken away. In due course, it's taken away. Back to the human form, or back to, from there, into the animal species. So it's a very risky proposition. And so this is, even though this is elevated and it is authorized by the Vedic scriptures, the Vedic, the guidelines that are given within the Shastra. And so therefore, in one sense, authorized, right? Because it's given in the Shastra, it's authorized. But it's still considered ignorant, right? Still considered to be in a state of ignorance, like the demigods. The demigods are admitting here, we're in a state of ignorance. We were born after you. We've not been able to see your transcendental pastimes. We've not seen you create the material universe. We've not seen your descent, if you like. This is what avatar means. We've not seen your descent from the spiritual world into the material world. So, your activities are impossible for us to understand, right? Na narva chino visagasya dhatar veditum ahati. Not possible for one who's born after you, or within the creation, basically. Visagasya means the creation. It's not possible for those born under the influence of the material energy to know the transcendental characteristics of the Lord. Na veditum arhati. Not able to understand. Right? And so that's why one needs a guru, effectively. Why one needs to study the Vedas under the auspices of a bona fide spiritual master, because there's just so much information in the Vedas. It's easy to become bewildered by it. And so then one can accept something which appears to be good but is not. Right? Worship of the demigods, it's authorized in the Vedic literature. And it appears to be an elevation, certainly from the human species. It's an elevation. And from the animal species, from the hellish planets, it's an elevation. So it appears to be good. Right? Because it's progress, if you like, from being an animal and from being a human being. You can live for many, many thousands of years and enjoy the benefits of the heavenly planets. But according to the Vaishnavas, Prabhupada says here, Vaishnavas have nothing to do with the other planetary systems other than what? The Vaikuntha Lokas. That's where they aspire. What is it? Om Tad Vishnu Paramam Padam. sada pasyanti surayoho dviva chakshur atatam jagra vamsa samindate. Is that right? Something like that. Do you chant that every morning? Yeah. I learned it a long time ago, and when I put my tilak on, that's one of the prayers that you chant before putting on your tilak. But what does it mean? The demigods and the brahmanas, they look to the supreme abode, Om Tad Vishnu Paramam Padam. Right? Param, Padam, the topmost place of residence. And what's that? Om Tad Vishnu, the place of Lord Vishnu. So that's the Vaikuntha Lokas. Right? They see the inferior nature of the heavenly planets. From the lower position, the heavenly planets look like everything, or certainly the location to aspire to. But the devotees know, because they have a clear understanding of what the purpose of the Vedas is, and they're not bewildered by the flowery language of the Vedas, but rather to the essence, the Vedanta, right? Vedanta is the conclusion of the Vedas. Vedayascha savaraham eva vedjo Vedanta krid veda vid eva chaham, Krishna says. Right? So, it's essential that one studies the Vedas under the auspices of somebody who knows the Vedas and knows the purpose of the Vedas. And of course, the purpose of the Vedas is not to go to the heavenly planets, although we are encouraged in the Vedas to worship the demigods, to go to the heavenly planets. Right? But that's why we need a teacher to help us discriminate, to understand what sections of the Vedas should we be focused on. Right? And it's why we study effectively the Bhagavad Gita and the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, because the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam is considered to be the, Nigama Kalpataro Galitam Phalam. It's considered to be the ripened fruit of the tree of the Vedic literature. Right? Or it's the Vedasar, it's the essence of the Vedas. Right? This is why the Bhagavatam is so important. So important. And why Prabhupada concentrated on the Bhagavatam. Why the Bhagavatam is the elementary or the fundamental basis of our hearing and chanting in every day. Right? And one of the Panchanga Bhakti, one of the Bhakti processes that gives prema to those who engage in those activities, the 5 activities of prema bhakti. One of them is hearing the Bhagavatam. So it's fundamentally essential for the devotees, because it's the natural commentary on the Vedanta Sutra. The Vedanta Sutra is the essence of the Vedas. The Vedanta, the end of the Vedas, right? And the natural commentary, so the Vedanta Sutra is so conceptually, compact. It's also difficult to understand. And so therefore, and it's interesting, you see, Vyasadeva had compiled all of the Vedic literature, right? And yet, even though he compiled all of the Vedic literature, what was he? Ecstatic? No. What was he? He was tired. He was tired. Yeah, he was tired. He was tired. So he then said to Narada Muni, he was inquiring from Narada Muni, who's his spiritual master, what should he do? Right? This is a duty of a disciple. If a disciple is despondent and doesn't know what to do, then he should inquire. Right? Tadvidhi pranipatena pariprasnena sevaya. Right? So, and Narada Muni told him, you've compiled all of this Vedic literature, but all you've succeeded doing is confusing people. You confused yourself. Right? Because there's such a variety of instructions in the Vedas. And you know, for all different types of mode of ignorance, mode of passion, mode of goodness people, right? So he advised Vyasadeva to compile the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, so that people would have the essence of instruction, the essence of the Vedas. And so that's mentioned in the beginning of the Bhagavatam. The Bhagavatam is our very means of conquest, it's mentioned, right? By hearing the Bhagavatam. Nasta prayasava bhadreshu nitya bhagavata sevaya, etc. Right? Pretty interesting, really. But not approachable by everybody, actually. Approachable only by the devotees. And we see the mood of the devotees here with the demigods, right? Your activities are impossible for us to understand. We therefore have nothing to offer you but our humble obeisances. And this is very interesting. With that mood of submission, and that mood of dependence, and that the activity of regularly hearing the Bhagavatam, one actually gets an opportunity to know and to see and to appreciate and understand the Lord. Although, you know, I mentioned this the other day, and it was a nice point that in this these classes that I've been listening to on the Dasamula Tattva, Kamalalochana Prabhu mentions that the Lord is not known as such, but rather the pastimes in the Bhagavatam are relished. They're explored, they're absorbed. One absorbs one's consciousness in these activities of the Lord, and in that way relishes the mellows of devotion, of bhakti, rasasa. So, bhakti ras. So, and in that way then one knows or understands the Lord in that mood of dependence, of humility, actually. It's submission. Supplication, that's right. Supplication. And that's what the demigods are doing here. We were born after you, and after you've performed all of your wonderful activities. And so it's impossible for us to understand you. And so therefore we offer our obeisances to you. So this is very much a mood of a devotee. What is it? Vandanam. This is one of the 9 items of bhakti that's being demonstrated here by the demigods. They're relishing the activities, the pastimes of the Lord by, what is it? Shravanam Kirtanam. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Smaranam, remembering the Lord, and also here, Vandanam, offering of prayers. In the Nectar Devotions it's mentioned that any one of the 9 items, or all of them, or a combination of them, one can achieve perfection. So that's what we're seeing the demigods doing here. They've been hearing, they're chanting, they're remembering, and here they're offering prayers. Their mood is one of supplication, of submission, which is the mood of a devotee, and they're recognizing, you're the Lord of all of these 3 destinations, but the real destination is Vaikuntha. That's where we want to go. When one transcends these various planetary systems and enters Vaikuntha Loka, he achieves the ultimate resort of the Vaishnavas. Vaishnavas have nothing to do with the other planetary systems. Does anybody have any comments or questions?
I've met some people sometimes.
You met some people sometimes.
That think that they can worship anyone and achieve the same goal.
Right.
Why do they think like that?
They're fools. Krishna says they're fools. And earlier on, last verse I spoke on, what was it, Saturday? They're criticised, or their efforts are considered to be like trying to cross the ocean by hanging on to the tail of a dog. Right? If you hang on to the tail of a dog, how far are you going to get? You won't even get past, you won't get out of Port Phillip Bay, what to speak of. Yep. So, now why do they think like that? Why? Because most people are in ignorance. And one of the interesting characteristics of studying the Bhagavatam is that one's appreciation of time, of the vastness of the universe, the enormity of everything, and the presence of the demigods even, for example. The presidents of the planetary controllers, the presence of the demigods, and then the presence of the Manvantaras, and just the whole enormity and the structure of the universal affairs. People are just ignorant of it. Right? Mostly their mind is, their consciousness is focused on, suburban Melbourne, right? Maybe Victoria, which they don't know a lot about, and then the rest of Australia, right? And then what's beyond that? US, Bali, right? Phuket. What else? Not, it's all pretty much within this global, but that's it. Beyond that, the moon, or they're thinking about Mars. That's about it. But when you study the Bhagavatam, then you just get this. You get this vista that's expanded so much broader, and with an appreciation of authorities and powers that are, outside of the accessibility of most people. So when you think about it, as we do, then our perspective on the universal affairs is much, much broader and goes beyond the material into the transcendental world, into Vaikuntha Loka and the place of Vishnu, from whom all of the other material realms come from. But most people are scratching their heads thinking, well, where did we come from? Right? They think we came from monkeys. Right? This is the limit of their consciousness. Right? Advanced monkeys, that's all we are. Right. And there's a reason, there are good reasons for that actually. I was listening to a lecture by Sadhuputta the other day, and he was making the point that within, and evolution has some basis of fact, right? Because he was making the observation that there's a template for all mammals. Interesting point he was making. There's a template. What's the template for mammals? How many? 4. Yeah. And what do they have? What goes on in the inside? What is it? Vertebrates. We have a backbone, right? And he made a point that if you analyse the hands of a horse, which is the 2 front legs, right? They actually have toes, right? And have a guess how many? 2. Close, but there's more. How many do you think? 5. They've got 5. One of them is prominent. The nail, the nail. It's the hoof is actually the nail of the. But he said he made a point that if you analyse it, there are 4 residual undeveloped toes, if you like, or fingers on the hoof of a horse. Very interesting, right? And so you'll see there's a template for mammals that's fairly consistent, but it's developed differently depending on the nature of the species. Right? So, we see that as evidence. We view that as evidence of there being a planner. Right? There's some structure, there's some order in things. He explained there's a couple of theories on evolution where everything is uniquely created, or as the evidence suggests, that there are templates that have been created and then they're expanded upon depending on the species of the living entity. So they're not unique. We're not unique. And you can see that. We see that that's why evolution as a theory has some, it has some compulsion, it's compelling because of that evidence that we see around us, right? Of course, we see it differently. We see it from the instruction of the Vedas that there is evidence that it's all been planned. And things are modified, according to requirements. So, the mindset of the Transcendentalists or the Vaishnavas is expanded beyond what the average man in the street is exposed to. And we just discuss that as normal. This is normal life for us, right? And then when we put these ideas to the man on the street, he says, "That's what?" It's mind-blowing, right? Like I mentioned the other day, when I opened up the Nectar of Devotion at one of my friends' house and I read that Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is playing with his friends in the forest of Vrindavan and they're herding cows, and I just, wow, whoa. Right, so it's ignorance. It's just lack of exposure. Yeah, that's why we have to be merciful. And of course not blow people away too, because there's so much far out stuff in the Vedas, we could just blow people's minds. And so when we talk to them, they just go, these Hare Krishnas, whoop, 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 whoop. The Three Stooges. You fool. But we can't even do that. We have to introduce things very, very, very gradually and subtly. Otherwise we'll just blow people, So that's why Krishna says, don't disturb the minds of the ignorant, but encourage them in acts of devotion, so that gradually we soften their hearts and soften their understanding of things, so that eventually they can get to be like the demigods. Okay, I think we should... Oh, Mahatma Ji.
When you were saying about monkey, I was thinking of monkeypox.
Monkey?
Monkeypox.
Monkeypox.
Like smallpox.
Yes.
Coming from
Monkeys.
human beings.
Yes.
That's what happened.
Yes. Yes. I read an article yesterday, and they were saying that, they were speculating, but probably got some truth. They were saying that casual sex at a couple of concerts in Southern Europe, where somebody had that disease, and that's how it's been passed around.
From Australia, one case in Sydney, one in Melbourne.
Two cases.
How did it originate?
It comes from monkeys. So they're speculating, somebody from, and it's usually in Africa, because that's where the monkeys live, basically. Well, also in India, and so they're thinking, the speculation is, and has, it's not irrational. Somebody from Africa has, with the monkeypox, has...
Like AIDS.
Yes. And so that's the transmission. Huh? No, not necessarily in this case, because it's within the within the community at large. Yeah. So it's not isolated to it's within the heterosexual community. But again, no sense control, and so look at the ramifications. Yeah. Looks like we're in for a little bit of karma here.
It's just another feather in the World Health Organisation that they're trying to do to be able to lock down other countries from the World Health Organisation, which is happening at the moment. The last couple of days, they're looking for that power.
I'm not sure about that, but certainly it encourages me to avoid bad association. Keep your mask on. Keep your mask on. Keep keep clean. Yeah. Look, frankly, I don't think it's not an attempt to shut countries down. It's just warning people, be careful.
It's on the agenda.
Yeah. Okay. Grantharaj Śrīmad Bhāgavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaura Bhaktivedanta ki jai.